So when Border Patrol agents shot and killed Alex Preddy, a 37-year-old ICU nurse in Minneapolis, hours later, Attorney General Pam Bondi sent a letter to Minnesota state government with three demands. Hours later, the first was to hand over voter rolls, to hand over Medicaid and food assistance data, and to end sanctuary policies in Minneapolis. Nothing about the shooting, nothing even about immigration. So she's tied federal law enforcement, immigration, and customs enforcement to compliance. Make no mistake of it, this is a protection racket. This is criminal. This is what the mafia does. Minnesota isn't special. Actually, since May 2025, DOJ has been pressuring over 40 states to hand over their voter rolls. And that includes full names, addresses, social security numbers, and driver's licenses. So far, they've sued 24 states who have refused to comply with this demand. And it isn't just 24 Democratic states. Even Republican secretaries of state have refused to comply. Kansas, New Hampshire, Texas. They're all saying no, and they're citing privacy laws for this reason. So why are they doing this? What is the desperation here? Because in 2020, their plan failed. 84 people signed fake elector certificates claiming Trump won states that he actually lost. The people got charged, and Trump was able to pardon 77 of them in January. Say serial killers get better with every attempt, every opportunity. And what Trump learned is that they needed to know exactly who to challenge at the polls, right? It wasn't enough to just create some fake voters. They needed to figure out who the real ones were. Who could they intimidate with citizenship verification, and how to manufacture federal voter fraud charges that look legitimate, but they really aren't. So what they're trying to do is build the infrastructure to function this fraud. Basically, they learned that they needed real data this time around. So they asked Doge to steal it. So Doge employees gave Social Security data to a political group that wanted to overturn the election results in certain states. Now, thanks to a whistleblower working in the federal government, the administration had to admit in court that this happened and they don't know where the data went, positioning themselves as like some rogue employees did this. Sure. Who's the group that Doge sent this information to? I don't know, but probably one that's very similar to United in Purpose, an evangelical political group that aims to register evangelical Christians to vote. Their owner, Bill Dallas, boasts that they have 191 million voter information on record, which is a lot. It's a lot. In Bill Dallas's own words, they pretty much have the entire voter population's data. And who is going to facilitate this infrastructure building? Well, Palantir's contracts just doubled up to $970 million. They have contracts with the Army totaling up to $10 billion. And Trump signed an executive order to allow Palantir to integrate government data. Immigration OS is one that ICE is using. So it's the same goal as 2020, but it's better infrastructure. But it's still illegal. And because of that, it is failing. Federal courts have also dismissed these cases in California and Oregon. So states are blocking them, courts are stopping them, and whistleblowers are blowing the whistle. Those moments of resistance don't happen in an authoritarian state. We are still in the institutional resistance phase. Anyway, these people are so incompetent the way that they're building this because false matches are everywhere. Believe it or not, in a country of 30 plus million people, a lot of people have the same first name, last name, and or birthday. Not only that, but people going through the naturalization process to become a citizen, they appear in federal databases with work authorizations. Then they become citizens legally and are registered to vote. Doge is flagging legal voters as non-citizens because of database timing. State voter rolls don't even include social security numbers. That's why they needed to steal from the Federal Social Security Administration so they can try and put these matches together themselves. Now, you tell me if this administration can do that level of work in a reasonable amount of time with the resources that they have. When I say what resources are they going to do this with, the reason why Doge sold this information via third party is because career federal employees won't help put this together. Then all of these operations are consolidated into one single company, Palantir. That creates one single point of failure that we need to focus on to dismantle this whole thing. They're running this entire voter suppression campaign off of one company that has a history of privacy violations and surveillance overreach. If Palantir ever faces regulatory action, say by a 2027 Congress, if their systems get breached by, say, some righteous political justice hackers, if the 2027 Congress cuts their contracts, if there's a data scandal that triggers a congressional investigation, the entire infrastructure, this entire campaign collapses. Even their own communications chief has called this unholy matrimony between Trump and Palantir to be really concerning. So cracks are already showing itself within that company. They're not doing all of this stuff because they're powerful. They're doing all this stuff because they're weak and they're vulnerable. Here is what they're actually afraid of. Here is what's actually possible in these next 365 days. Right now, we just need six Republicans in the Senate to block additional funding towards ICE. Those people may likely be Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, maybe Tom Tillis because he's retiring, Joni Ernst, who's also up for re-election like Susan Collins and Murkowski, Todd Young, and Chuck Grassley. I'd like to think Rand Paul would be on that list too instead of Chuck Grassley, but hey, who knows? We'll see. I mean, if we want to force votes to defund and maybe even abolish ICE and impeach the president, you actually just need 13 Republican senators to vote yes. That's how close we are. That's how close. In a year where majority of Congress is up for re-election, things can change. And they know that. They have the stats, they have the polls to show that everybody wants this thing to change. They're desperate. And desperation makes mistakes. You make prosecutable mistakes. Court order violations, Hatch Act violations, unsecured data transfers, admissions in federal court that they can't account for stolen data. Every mistake creates evidence that will long outlast this administration and will peak during our version of the Nuremberg trials. But that future, those Nuremberg trials don't exist unless we handle business not in November, not in June, but in March. And not even in March when primaries first start. It starts right now. So yeah, despite all this, it's kind of crazy how voting doesn't matter, right?